Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Bengal Tiger Podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again is Shea Dixon, live from Houston. Shea, how you doing?
We are live from Houston. We're doing well. I can show you, Matty B, because this time I'm not on my computer setup. We're in Houston. They're all prepping the ballroom for tonight's big event at the LSU team hotel. And we should say, if you are at the LSU team hotel, which is the Hyatt downtown, or you're going to be at the game, let me know because I brought boxes of Bengal Tiger hats, guys.
There you go. Smart,
Boxes. Yes,
smart
correct.
man. I know Shea's been complaining about having like hundreds of them in his house for like a
Yeah,
year.
so there's at least a couple hundred that I brought with me. So, and I'll also have them out there at the LSU tailgate. They're doing the day of the game, that like big tailgate LSU alumni or whatever is putting on. So you'll be able to find me. I'll be around.
Yes, everybody rock your Bengal Tiger hats, and we'll be there. Shea will be there, and yeah, let us know. Send us pictures if you're in the hat. Send us
Yeah,
a
if you
selfie.
see me out and about, just say something else. I've have a bunch stuffed in my backpack too, so just handing them out.
Perfect. Perfect. Go
Well,
ahead.
let's kick it off. Game time. Well, first
Yes,
off,
game time.
shout out to all the new Bengal Tiger members as we come to an end of the 2024 year. Matty B, we had a bunch of growth with the site, new members, ton of new followers on YouTube, on our social channels. Shout out Colin for all that behind the scenes, but a big thank you. And still, it's just $1 if you are looking to get a little something after Christmas or just join for the new year. Maddie B, we've got basketball season rolling, men and women. You did a double header on Sunday. Portal season still rolling, even though it's officially closed on December 28th. We'll kind of lead with portal, but each team has, after their bowl game, 5 more days where kids could go into the portal. And so we'll continue to see guys enter here in the coming weeks and through the playoffs, stuff like that. But if you're watching on YouTube, Maddie B is scrolling around on the front page, and as you can see, everything from football recruiting to the basketball court, we've got you covered right now for just $1. Big shout out to all the members. Thank you, and a big shout out to Game Time, Maddie B, one of our sponsors all year. Um, Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code ON3. You get $20 off your first purchase. If you're checking for tickets for the bowl game, Matty B, I would guess that they will start going down more and more closer to kickoff. LSU Baylor on the 31st at 2:30 Central. Here in downtown Houston. I went to the Toyota Center last night, saw Rockets play. A lot of people there certainly were using Game Time. So get on to Game Time. You can get Broadway tickets, Globetrotters, Billy Strings. No matter where you are, there's something to go out, watch, do by yourself, with a loved one, with a friend, with someone you don't even like, and you're just trying to make up for lost time with. Get on Game Time, buy some tickets to something, but redeem the code ON3 ON3. Speaking of not friends, Maddie B, or someone you're splitting up with, the portal. That's what it's all about. I'm no longer with you, and I've moved on.
What a transition.
LSU is at 14 portal commits right now, signees, however you want to slice it.
Mm-hmm.
The goal that I had said and I'd heard was 15, and I think that still applies. It would still like a safety. But since the last time we've talked, they've added on the podcast a DN/edge rusher and Patrick Payton from FSU, a punter in Grant Chadwick, and an offensive lineman in Braelin Moore, an offensive lineman in Josh Thompson. Those are both a center in Moore and a guard in Thompson, and maybe someone who could play tackle. But it puts it at 14. Matty B, you were already impressed by the haul when you add a starting punter, when you add a starting edge rusher, when you had 2 starting O linemen to a group that maybe had the biggest question marks because only one of the starting 5 was going to be coming back next fall. How do you kind of rank it out from how they've expanded now with about 5 more additions?
Yeah, I start with the Payton edition. Clearly, that's that was a need, especially even with Jamari Butler and Jack Pyburn, and you needed a kind of dynamic playmaker off the edge. And Patrick Payton, at his best, is certainly that. Patrick Payton was the starting defensive end right across from Jared Verse when they were undefeated. Florida State was, and this past year, clearly, they were not undefeated, but he still started, played. Had good numbers, not as good, not as prolific as he was in 2023. But we're talking about a guy with multiple years of experience at a very, very good program. And I think even if, he's coming off of it wasn't a bad season, of a good, not great season, you take a shot on saying this guy could be great, working with Kevin Peoples, unlocking him again and getting the most out of him. So I start with Patrick Payton as being just a huge pickup for them and this defense in terms of getting to the quarterback and creating havoc.
Matty B, when you think about Kevin Peoples and what he did at Missouri with those ends and edge rushers, and then what he did with Savion and Braden Swinson this year as the two starters, let alone the backups and the guys who rotated in. I mean, we saw Gabe Relaford playing very well as a freshman when he got his snaps, but those starters made big jumps from where they were the year prior. I think in both their cases, certainly in Braden Swinson. So you look at a guy like Patrick Payton, ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year just 2 years ago. I mean, this is a guy who's played 40 games. He's got over 100 career tackles. He's got, let me give you 7 sacks in that 2023 season, but 16 total. Those are big numbers. I mean, 7 sacks is what Braden Swinson's at right now. That's that same kind of range of player. If they get that out of him next year, you're getting Braden Swinson again. If not, maybe someone who can even elevate beyond that.
Yeah, like the upside for Peyton is something that the LSU needed, and we'll talk about Harold Perkins' return, but it just takes so much pressure where you have now, because you remember they lost Swinson and they also lost Womack, so now you add Butler and you add Peyton, and obviously Gabriel Relaford has expectations that are high, and then there are some other younger players in this room that we also will see develop as well. So the defensive end room I feel significantly better about now. Then you move from there to the offensive line, Josh Thompson, Braelin Moore. I did a film study analysis on both of them. I believe I posted it yesterday on Sunday, Sunday morning. And Thompson, to me, could be the best player in this transfer portal class. That's how highly I think of him. I think the pass blocking is elite. I think he is a clear Miles Frazier replacement in that regard. And then he also is just really strong. He holds his own. I watch his games against Ohio State, watch his game against Michigan, Illinois, and he just does a really, really good job. Northwestern obviously was kind of falling apart around him because it's Northwestern and they weren't that good. But in terms of his matchup and what he needed to do, Josh Thompson was terrific. And I think he could step in and be potentially the best offensive lineman on LSU's team next year. I don't think that's saying like a stretch by any means, but he's that good. So Josh Thompson to me was a awesome pickup for LSU.
And Braelin Moore, a starting center. I mean, you could argue that those two, with their experience, are LSU's 2 best offensive linemen next year. I think you can make a case for it at least.
Yeah, I like Moore as well. He's athletic. He reminds me of a Charles Turner. So if you get a Charles Turner but a little bit stronger version, like now that we look back on Charles Turner, we're like, oh man, we didn't know what we had at the time because of how smart he was and how athletic he, just the small things. Now he wasn't the biggest, and Moore is not the biggest center.
Yeah, that was the only knock on Charles Turner is he was athletic, he was undersized.
Yeah, and so Moore is also not huge, but I think he is definitely is stronger than Turner was and has a little bit more skin in the run game in particular at Virginia Tech. So, but a great athlete from Moore, a guy who can pull, a guy who can pass block, has really good feet. So you get those two, and now for the offensive line, it's just about filling in the gaps from there with Chesters, Mabangas, go down the list, the Carius Kearns, the Solomon Thomas,
Weston Davis,
Weston Davis at
Tyree
tackle.
Adams.
Yeah. So that's where they needed to get, and they checked off those 2 boxes. They got a center where you're gonna feel good about it no matter what, and then I think you got an extremely high level offensive lineman in Josh Thompson, who I think is best at guard. We've talked about it. I think they can slide him over to tackle if they need to, but I do want to see him at guard because he's just so strong and physical. I think in pass protection and in the run game.
I think you could also say the most recent, or one of the most recent portal additions in a punter in Grant Chadwick. He's a true freshman coming out of Middle Tennessee State, or a freshman coming out of Middle Tennessee
Yeah.
State. This is a guy who can flip the field. He's a guy who pins balls down inside the 10. I think this goes up there as a top 5 portal addition for me out of the 14 because instant starter, yes, you don't want to ever punt really, but when you have to, it was like bad news for LSU. It felt like this past year. I think that the answers have been solved. I know they took a punter last cycle, but they didn't ever use him. I think this time they are using Grant Chadwick right out of the gates, and he's your starting punter from day one until the end of the season. And a guy, Matty B, comes with a lot of accolades. Like, he was one of the best punters in the country.
Yeah, and as a true freshman, nonetheless, I mean, this is you mentioned it, the inability to flip the field this past season paired with the offensive struggles just really put everybody in a tough spot to where it was like, all right, a 35-yard punt, 33-yard punt, like those when you're punting from the 20 and you only get to midfield or barely past it, it just really puts your defense in a tough spot. So hopefully that alleviates that concern to a degree. And now they're up to you said it was 14 signees, correct?
It's 14, and we thought I heard from sources it'd be around 15.
Yeah.
So they're right there. They would love to add a safety.
I was gonna say, is that that's the only need left here?
I think you did a good article that broke it down, but at the time you said O-line, they go out and they add these 2 guys.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, well, you've added a special teams guy, a punter. You don't need any punt returners. You've got a bunch of them now. Kick returners with Xavier,
They
Aaron
might have
Anderson,
the best punt
Barry
returning
Brown
group.
from Kentucky. Yeah, I mean, this is a legit punt and kick return group. So I think that it's a great 14. I'd like to see safety be 15, or a safety be added to get to 15. They will, I do think. But you also touched on tight end. I think another tight end could be used if it's an inline guy. They want to do more 12 personnel. But beyond that, Matty B, I don't know. You tell me, because I think it leads us into our next thing up. They went out and got starters and a starter back in Harold Perkins.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is people on our board and have talked about it is, do you want another defensive tackle? Now, I think from a numbers perspective, they're perfectly fine on defense tackle, and I didn't include that in my article. I included it as like a honorable mention, I guess, of like, hey, I'm not sure if they need another defense tackle, but from a numbers perspective, I think that they are perfectly fine there, especially when you consider that they've added 4 defense tackles from this freshman class alone. And then obviously Sadir Mitchell, who we talked about last podcast, they brought in. But McKinley, Bro, Guillory, Mitchell, like that's a good 4. Then you bring in 4 freshmen, and then I also believe Chemo and Sean Washington are still on the roster for next year as well. So that group, I mean, that's 10 right there. And I'm fairly high on Zion Williams, and I'm pretty high on Dylan Battle and Walter, Buddy Mathis, and Brandon Brown.
I love Buddy Mathis.
Yeah, so of that 4, if you can get, just 2 to be not even full contributors, just kind of back end rotation guys, maybe 10 snaps a game from that.
Kind of like Ahmad Bro and Dom McKinley were this year.
Exactly.
As true freshmen.
So I don't think they need a defensive tackle. I think if you want to be greedy and you got some money laying around later on, and maybe in the spring or something, if someone throws in their name, then maybe. But that's the only thing I could see. You mentioned tight end as well. I wouldn't be shocked. But I think they're content with what they have.
I think, and beyond safety, I do think that they're not going to go into that spring portal window with that panic again that was felt last year when it was
Correct.
like, they got to go add D tackles and
Correct.
D linemen and all of that. It feels like beyond safety, they're pretty well handled.
Yeah. And as for safety, just real quick thoughts on the, what we could see in the coming weeks, months, or anything like that. How's it go?
Look, they really wanted Poyser coming out of Jacksonville State. He ends up going to Miami, so that kind of hurt. And we saw Boo Carter. That would have been a guy they jumped all over, Matty B, at Tennessee. Kind of flirt publicly with the portal, then say he's coming back to Tennessee. So obviously Tennessee buckled in there. I would just keep an eye on teams out there that are still playing, or that, haven't played their bowl game, playoffs or not. They get those extra 5 days. If there's coaching changes, like a head coach, you get an extra, 30 days, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So between that and then obviously the spring window, they'll add a safety. I'm very confident there. But we should also say, and I've asked around now, and it's not just smoke, they really do like what Toviano is doing right now that he's moved back to safety, which is more of a natural position, I think.
Yes.
So it maybe lends you to look. Jordan Gilbert is obviously still out there as a guy who could come back next year. Then you had a guy like Toviano to that room. You add, if you can, a portal transfer safety, and that buys time for Deshaun McBride, Joel Rogers, other guys who can play that position. So I almost feel like we're in this kind of stretch where maybe they hit on the safety and get a big one in this cycle, and that really helps. But if you can get Blaine Bradford, number one safety in the country, out of Baton Rouge next year, and you've already got Aiden Hall out of Endicott, a top 5 safety, those are two guys who are going to come in and play right away, like in a rotation. So that and the portal next year, I just feel like for me, safety might be the position this year. We'll see how it goes, but that you still look at and say, I'd like to see them add one or two more guys.
Yeah. Mansour Delaney, we talked about it, can play safety and
That is true.
probably could start, at safety.
Virginia Tech transfer with a
Yeah,
lot of starts under his belt.
a ton of starts, played corner, I think can play star very effectively, great tackler. So and he is a guy who can play any of the defensive back spots there. You mentioned Toviano, you mentioned Spears, Rogers, they still have Gilbert. So I think you try to go get one high end guy that can contribute immediately. It would allow Delaney to be that versatile piece that you want him to be, because without that, I think he is probably a safety right now, but you want to have that versatility. So I think that covers all the needs. I mean, they're
Well,
fine
yeah,
everywhere else.
and I think people have a good feel for the 14. Again, if you go to the BengalTiger.com and just go to the football recruiting tab at the top, you can see transfers. It's just right
Mhm.
under commitments, and you can browse through who's entered from the team, who they've landed, and get a better feel. And we've had a ton of write-ups on these guys. Maddie B is doing breakdowns on all of them. So check out the Bengal Tiger, only $1. Maddie B, all really beyond maybe Van Buren, the quarterback from Mississippi State, and then Texas D tackle Sadir Mitchell. Those might be the two guys they added where you say they're not expected to start. The others
Mhm.
are, which was the goal of going out in the portal and getting a large majority of starters. But they also get Harold Perkins back. Harold Perkins isn't taking Whit Weeks' spot. So what are you doing with Harold Perkins if you're Blake Baker?
That's the $1 million question. Everybody has
It's actually like 2.2 million or 6 million, whatever Baker makes.
whatever Baker makes. And then you add in the whole defensive staff to everybody. That is the question. Everybody is on the star train right now. I thought it was an interesting quote from Brian Kelly to say that Perkins knows what he wants to do, has a sense for what he wants, and we are in line with that. Now, if we go back to this time last year, Perkins wanted to play inside. Perkins wanted to kind of flirt with that and kind of see where his prospects were on the
Yeah,
inside. I'm curious to see how that's
I
changed
don't
now
think
that he's
that's the
played.
same now.
I agree.
I
I
almost feel like that was an agent slash coaching. The
Yes.
people around Harold said, "This is what's best for you. Get linebacker reps, understand the position, all of that." I think what Harold wants to do is just go get after the ball carrier, rush the
Yeah.
passer.
Yeah, and that sounds like the whole inside linebacker thing sounds good when you lay it out and like in theory, that is a ton of work processing and seeing. Like we've seen it with like a Damone Clark, how long it takes to get to that point. Greg Penn, how long it takes to get to that point. Like it's not just something you do in an off season. It's something that takes years and years of development and practice to get that to that point. And to be frank, I don't think Perkins nor LSU are interested in like a multi-year development thing for him. They want to see how can he be most impactful in 2025, 1 year coming off an ACL injury, go get X amount of tackles, go get back to 13 tackles for loss or whatever he was the past couple of years. Like go reach those numbers again. And how can you do that? It's by being star, Sam, whatever you want to call it, that kind of attacking linebacker. Now, the rebuttal from people and that what happened when he got injured was it doesn't fit what Blake Baker wants to do and doesn't fit against, SEC teams that can throw the ball on you and so on and so forth. That's what Blake Baker's paid X amount of dollars to figure out. And everybody has their opinion. Nobody knows for sure. Blake Baker doesn't know for sure. Harold Perkins doesn't know for sure how it's going to work out if you play him at star or Sam, wherever. it's going to be very interesting to me because at this point, it's just it's on the coaching staff and it's on Harold Perkins. I said this at this time last year. It's going to be on Perkins to really lock in from every perspective, from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint, from a film standpoint. It is now on you in your money year to go make the most of this season. And if you are in position, again, this is if Perkins is leading the charge to play wherever this is, Star, Sam, in wherever, then it's on him to step up and make plays and be a better tackler than he was last year. Like, just be better. And so that's what I'm really interested to see, because it is on Baker. It's also on Perkins to just be more effective in whatever position he's in next year.
This defense got so much better. Not just getting Harold back,
Yes.
but these additions through the portal, getting DJ Pickett, getting Aiden and getting all of these guys they've signed in this freshman class of high school guys that are coming in. DJ Pickett and them already practicing out there. So I think we're going to see a defense that was already making big strides lose some pieces, but the sum of the parts next year will be better, in my opinion. And we've seen that the coaching is elite. It's a very good coaching staff. Offensively, you get Garrett Nussmeier back. You've got Caden Durham. You signed the best running back in America. You signed 2 top 10 running backs out of in the country, both out of Louisiana, and Harlan Berry and JT Lindsey. You've added some Nick Anderson, Barry, and Brown, these guys at receiver, to make up for the losses of Kyron and then CJ Daniels transfer. And Matty B, we talked about that on the last podcast, thinking, hey, this group might be better than last year's group when you put them all together if you've got a healthy Nick Anderson who's coming out of OU to LSU. So it will be, and then obviously special teams, you've added a punter, and with no need for a returner, I think that this team is much, much, much better than the team from a year ago.
Also,
That's
I'll
my
mention,
opinion.
I think it is better. But also I think continuity is going to be massive. I think that is something that we talked about. We tried preparing people for it, but changing both coordinators, right? Changing a whole defensive staff, like making significant changes to personnel, like just the lack
First
of
year starter at quarterback.
yeah, just the lack of continuity going to last year, and we talked about it. Like, we weren't naive to it, but I think there was this expectation, especially after the start that they had. There was like, okay, they're just going to keep rolling. They're going to figure it out. When things get bumpy, when players get injured, like, just not having that continuity, I thought was very, very evident. And so now you have the returning staff. You have a lot of returners at some key positions here, and then you go get veterans out of the portal. I just think that it sets up for them to be in a much better position. But I do agree also talent-wise, I think they are better at receiver, better at like some key positions. They'll be better at quarterback. They'll be better at running back. They'll be better on the offensive line, I think. Or not better on the offensive line. I think they'll be able to play how they want to on the offensive line, especially on the interior where they just weren't comfortable last year.
Yeah.
So now you know what you need to do. You have an offseason to work on it. Um, I'm very excited for this team, and we'll see what they do to finish out in the transfer portal. But LSU fans, after a month ago being in burn the city down, I think this is about as good of a turnaround and as good of a past 3
Oh,
weeks as you could ask for.
and to win those games over Vandy and OU to close
Yes.
out the season was massive, because then you went to signing day. There were some road bumps, losing Underwood, obviously, and losing another 5-star corner. But you signed a top 10 class and one that by the end of it could be top 5. I really like it a lot, top to bottom. I think they addressed a lot of needs. So this was a really great high school to portal 3 weeks for them, I would say.
And furthermore, just even more big picture, I think it has reinvigorated the fan base in terms of um, being involved with the program, and financially that's clearly where you see it make a difference. Brian Kelly basically called everybody out, including himself. It was like, we have to be more committed financially to this program. We have to, what was it, pay the ante to get a seat at the table, and they have now paid that ante. And so now it is, you can sit at the table. He said it in the press conference. He's like, now when someone goes in the portal, like, we don't even have to like check the bank account. Like, we can just go get them, kind of, or we can go throw our hat in the ring. Like, that's kind of what he's saying, and that, I think that is a positive. That is a light that has shined since the Bryce Underwood situation, that has been magnified and that's going to really help this program for years to come. So that's another huge, even outside of the immediate, which is getting some awesome players from the portal and a really good signing class. Now you have buy-in of another level, and people have realized what it takes to be at the level that they want to be at.
That's well put. Look, every week we give a shout out to one of our sponsors, My Perfect Franchise, Andy Luedecke. He's the best in the business, living in Texas, helping out a lot of people in the Southeast and all over the country. Jump into the business of becoming either a franchise owner, franchisee, part-time involvement, but as a franchise consultant, he's done this for decades. And the hookup he does with On3 and the Bengal Tiger, since we've ridden with him for about 3 or 4 years now, is if you want to call him, email him, whatever it is, it's 100% free to talk to him, throw some ideas around, get a feel for things. And as a franchise consultant, he's giving his time away, which is money, and he's doing it because he has supported On3 and the Bengal Tiger in a big way. So a shout out to Andy. But if you are ready to, whether it's leaving the corporate rat race, chasing some dream you've got, if your kids are getting out of college or getting out of high school and wanting to figure out what they're doing with their lives, if you're looking to pass something down or do something, a hobby that you've got that you can do in your free time, but you don't know how to get started, all of that is under the umbrella of what he deals with as a franchise consultant. So again, give him a call, 404, you see it on the screen, 404-973-9901, or email him, Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. That's ANDY at myperfectfranchise.net, or give him a call, 404-973-9901. You can tell him Shea and Maddie B at the Bengal Tiger is where you heard about it. But any questions you have on becoming involved in a franchise business, he's got answers to, or we'll find them. So a lot of people have already used him and had great success. We've got no complaints. So shout out to another year of riding with Andy here on Monday, December 30th, as we wrap up the year for all he's done. Matty B, as we wrap up the bowl game, LSU Baylor, I think Baylor's favored by 1. Let's just call this even. We haven't seen a large amount of guys opt out for LSU. Will Campbell opted out, obviously. Mason Taylor. But look, Garrett Nussmeier is playing. Like, you've got Kyron Lacey opted out, but you still got your starting quarterback. You've got a lot of your pieces that were key to
Miles
you, like
Frazier.
Whit Weeks, Frazier, guys like that, Greg Penn. But it's going to give us a chance to see some other guys. And I noted DJ Pickett and others who signed as high school guys have been practicing. They traveled as early enrollees. They're doing bowl practice. That's huge for them because that's practicing now and spring ball and summer and fall camp, but they can't play in the games. So give me offense and defense. We'll do one each. Who do you really want to see in this game? And you can give me a couple if you want, but that is going to give you a glimpse into next season.
The number one for me might not even start. And
deep cuts from Matty B to end the 2024 calendar year.
To me, it's Weston Davis. I really want to see Weston Davis play, and we've seen from multiple, videos from practice that they've had Miles Frazier at tackle and Bo Bordelon at right guard. I just need to see Weston Davis because the thing is, out of high school, 5-star and On3, clearly a ton of great tools. We were there in fall camp, and it was a project a little bit. It was Coach Brad Davis getting on him constantly, constantly coaching him up. And then the season comes and he doesn't play, which is understandable because he has awesome guys in front of him, NFL guys in front of him. And so next year, to me, I pencil in Tyree Adams, Weston Davis as the tackles. Now that could change, who knows? But that's who I pencil in. So I just want to see Weston Davis on the field because the whole time it's always been about developing, trying to get him ready. All right, now this is however many months later. How much has he improved? How ready is he? And how much more does he have to do to get to that position where he is a starter come fall of 2025? So that's the one for me. Hopefully, even if he doesn't start, we see him plenty in this game.
Yeah, Tyree Adams, another who is a potential starting tackle next year. We got glimpses of him this year when he came back at that Florida game, maybe. But if he starts, we could see some extended looks at him with the 2 tackles not playing in this one. I will say my pick is Xavier Thomas at wide receiver because when this year he was like that, what, fourth man, you would say at
Yeah.
receiver, Matty B.
Mm-hmm.
But with Kyron Lacy gone and CJ Daniels gone, and Berrien Brown and Nick Anderson and Destin Hill, your portal additions at receiver, not playing in this game, this is a chance for Xavier to start at receiver and get a lot of run. And we know what Aaron Anderson can do. But what can Xavier Thomas do? And he put up 500 yards for State 2 years ago, and they were terrible and couldn't even throw the football. And he had 500 yards. Being the fourth guy this year, especially after they found our kind of a run game, right? A semblance of one with Josh Williams and Caden Durham. He didn't get a lot of volume, and they threw to Mason Taylor more than they threw the tight ends, Nussmeier, it felt like. So I think that this is our chance to see, and they'll have a million practices and all that, but Xavier Thomas in a game before these other guys show up and say, hey, look, what kind of impact can you make? And does that carry over into next year where he is a starter or a very consistent part of that rotation still? And
Yep.
not just some gadget piece.
Yeah. Um, Three more who I mentioned in my story from a few days ago. Trades Green will clearly be interesting. Just because I think he's gonna have to have a more significant role next year. Paul Mabanga will continue
I
to
like that
develop,
one.
which includes, Paul Mabanga, DJ Chester, but mostly Mabanga. And then I have Chris Hilton written down.
Oh, I forget Chris Hilton. Yes, that's a good one.
I think they added Nick Anderson, they added Berrien Brown, they added Destin Hill. Chris Hilton is under some pressure this offseason, which we'll talk about later in the offseason. But there you gotta stay healthy, you gotta produce, you gotta be consistent, you gotta catch balls, and it's gonna be interesting to see how he develops this offseason because they basically said, hey, if Chris Hilton can't help us, we don't want to be in the same position we were in this past year, where we have no speed, where we have no vertical threats, where it's Chris Hilton or bust, and Chris Hilton was hurt this whole year. It's like, all right, now we have other guys that are incredibly fast and awesome playmakers. So now Hilton can't just return and be, all right, hey, I'm back. You got to go elevate your game. And so that's what I'm interested to see if Chris Hilton can do that this offseason. I expect him to have a strong bowl game, just like he did last year. But I do think in the offseason, that's kind of a storyline to watch is Chris now has some competition in terms of being an over-the-top guy, and he's going to have to compete with, I think, Berrien Brown to a degree and see how he continues to just develop this offseason.
Who did you write down on defense? Because I am a bit more curious of that, only because I feel like Braden Swinson's playing.
Mm-hmm.
Almost everybody that played all year is playing in
Yeah,
this
Pinn's
game. So
playing.
how many backups are we really going to see that will shine a light upon next year? For me, it might be. I don't know if PJ Woodland gets a ton of run in this game, so I'll go Ashton Stamps. And I know he starts every game and plays every game, but can he elevate in a game like this to where you say, hey, put an offseason into him and he's your starting nickel next year, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
I want to see Ashton Stamps, and I think that if Jordan Gilbert's coming back, I'd like to see Jordan Gilbert have a big game. I mean, that's a safety who up and down at the whole position this past year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Major Burns is out of eligibility. He's graduated. Congrats to Major. And then Sage hit the portal already, so he won't be playing in this one. He's going to Ole Miss. I want to see what Jordan does. So give me Jordan and Ashton, two guys who already started, but I want to see one time at the end of the year with a full month to prep what they look like, because I think both of them are guys that you debate next year where they fit, right? Like I think Ashton can move to nickel. I think that depending on what you have at safety, is Jordan starting or rotating? So those are two I've got an eye on. I don't know who you wrote down. That's defense is tougher than offense for me
It
in this
is.
one.
It is. The only name I wrote down was Deshaun Spears. I do think Toviano can fit in this conversation as well, but kind of just that safety spot in general with Sage
100%.
Ryan.
Toviano, that's the answer right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So without Sage Ryan, they should both get a ton of playing time, and we should be able to see pretty clearly, what they look like. We've seen Deshaun Spears, and it was a hit or miss kind of freshman year, but we still think he's very talented, and with an offseason should be fine. So Spears Toviano is kind of the combination there for me. If you want to go deeper, Tylen Singleton I think would be an interesting one because I
Devon
think
Keys. I mean, more Devon
yeah,
Keys.
more Devon Keys as well. So that's kind of the next group for me as well. Those linebackers.
It's funny that when we talk about Javian Toviano, who has played some corner for LSU, obviously out of need, now moving permanently to safety. I've thought about that multiple times and asked when I've asked people and sources, and they said, no, it's legit what they're saying, that he's really impressed. And I was like, well, I'll have to see it in the spring, completely forgetting that they're about to play a bowl game where he will be out there against another team. So I would guess he's starting right at safety. I mean,
I
Sage
guess
isn't
so.
there. He was a starter. So you've got Major, Jordan, and Toviano.
Him
So
or
maybe.
yeah, could Deshaun start?
I don't think Deshaun will start now. I
Okay.
would think. I mean, he could, but if Jordan's playing and Major's playing, and then you want to see it Toviano, I would think those
Yeah.
three probably have a little more experience on them.
Yeah. And then I had one more name and I just forgot who it was. But
Ahmad Bro, Don McKinley. I mean, there's some young guys on the
that's
interior
fine.
that could play. Gabe Relaford, though I don't know with Swinson playing how much he plays.
Yeah,
Uh,
we'll see. But regardless, the practices are good for this, at the very
yeah,
least. And
that's what coaches tell you all the time, Matty B. If you're not in the playoffs or whatever, bowls matter because it's free. What 15 free practice, however
yeah,
many it is, free practices. That's basically a spring or fall camp, and a third one.
yeah. And I love seeing my boy Harlan Berry over there getting snaps already.
And
What a guy.
shout out to our guy Harry Berry, his father, listener of the podcast. We'll have to call him up, ask him how Harlem's doing here out of the gates. But very good for those kids who signed. You get to enroll early, and now you don't have to wait till spring ball to suit up and kind of get a feel for the college game. You're doing it during bowl practices, which are obviously high intensity goes. So
Yeah.
here at Houston, they're doing a walkthrough today. Matty B game is the 31st at 2:30 Central Time. You got to pick. Bowl games are so
Ooh,
tough for me when guys. I don't know everyone on Baylor's roster who's sitting and not
yeah.
sitting. I do know that Aranda's a great coach. They haven't lost a game since the rumors, not rumors, it pretty much got reported. If they didn't go to Lubbock and win, he was getting fired. And that was like October 3rd. They've won every game since then.
Six
So
straight.
this is a team that has not lost a game basically since September. I mean, the end of September, October. And the games they lost were like BYU, Utah, Iowa State, uh, teams that or was it Arizona State? Iowa State? Maybe it was Arizona State.
Both are very good. I mean, they were that Big 12 championship game. I don't have it in front of me. One of those.
Okay, yeah, but good teams, right?
Mhm.
They lost to very good teams,
Yes.
so very solid teams. It'll be interesting. I'm. It's so tough for me bowl season to pick when guys opt out and you don't know who's starting and
I'll
all
say
that.
I'll say this. I believe watch me be wrong on this, the very little prep that I've done. I believe Sawyer Robertson's playing for them. And so you get both starting quarterbacks in this game, which in a lot of
Yeah,
bowl games you don't get. Like that alone sets the floor for this bowl game. Like in terms of entertainment value, just for the casual fan, like oh my gosh, you get both starting quarterbacks here. Garrett Nussmeier, obviously going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country next year. Like all of that on the table. It should be a fun game. I did not watch a ton of Baylor film going in. I've seen Baylor play this year, but I
yeah,
didn't
I've
dive
watched them
into
a number of times.
the Baylor film like I would do a normal week with all the stuff and holidays. But I know Baylor's favored. I can't
Give me the Tigers.
I can't see Garrett Nussmeier and them losing. No, I can't see it. I can't see it.
Give me the
Now,
Tigers.
if with Miles Frazier back, if they can just protect Nuss a little bit, I think Nussmeier figures it out, and they score enough points. And defensively, they have enough guys back to kind of piece it together. And I do think,
It
and one thing I've said before, Brian Kelly, and it's evident from the last two, but Brian Kelly, I think really, really puts emphasis on winning these bowl games, especially the last 2 years because it got them to 10 wins, right? He
right.
wants to be able to say 10-win season, 10-win season. I still think 9-win season, he wants to be able to say 10-win, 10-win, 9 wins.
Yeah,
Those are my
10,
first 3
10,
years.
9, and then you're back into double digits.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
it sounds a lot better than 10-10-8. So for
Yeah.
him, I think he approaches this game very, very seriously. And that's what I've said really over the past couple years in terms of he wants to win these bowl games. So I'm not putting it past him to really just go all out to win it. So don't look for like end of the bench guys to just come
No.
on in like, charity snaps or something. They're going to play to win this game 100%.
100. No, there's zero doubt about that. This game will also have much more entertainment value. You're right than like a year ago against Purdue. They
Oh,
were going through like a coaching change. They were on like their fifth quarterback. like Drew Brees was helping coach or whatever.
That was
And even without no, that was
2 years ago. Yeah.
2 years ago.
And
Yeah,
last year
Wisconsin was last year.
Wisconsin was fun.
Wisconsin was good.
Well,
The Purdue game 2 years ago,
yeah.
bad football.
Oh, Drew Brees coached them. Or
Wisconsin, yeah, yes, Wisconsin was last year where, or when I should say, Nuss got his first start,
yeah,
and he led the big comeback at the end with Chris Hilton
that was a fun game.
catching the balls and Brian Thomas.
It wasn't
Uh,
fun for me because I think I had LSU minus like 9, and I don't know
ouch,
why. I was
that was stupid.
well,
Uh,
here we
but
go.
remember, and Malik played until he broke the record at half, and Brian Thomas played the whole game
Yes.
and caught the winning touchdown.
Mhm.
So, and then they got that sack at the end and stripped it. So that had entertainment value. Hopefully, we get that kind of game, a
Yes.
back and forth
Yes.
or a
And
blowout.
it is or the blowout. It is one of the precursors to playoff game that night. I don't even remember which game it is. That is
I
being
don't know
played.
days anymore. Like around the holidays, I couldn't tell you what day of the week it is. I know today's the 30th, but you could have told me it was Sunday. Is it Monday? I would have believed you.
I mean, I
It
just
doesn't
worked
matter.
12 hours yesterday on a Sunday, so I don't even know what I'm doing anymore here with
Well,
the
you get
basketball
paid.
game.
You get paid. You're not doing it for free. Uh,
The
Shout
game
out
tomorrow night
to
is
people.
Boise and Penn State. So that's the
Yeah,
playoff
there you
game
go. That's one of
after
the more
LSU.
debated games of the second round here in the playoffs. So, a shout out to the people who pay Maddie B, all of our members. Thank
Yes.
y'all for another year around the sun with the Bengal Tiger. Again, $1 right now if you want to give it a test drive through the bowl week. Obviously, we'll have more news after the bowl game. Probably with guys entering the portal, more portal news potentially with them going after safeties or best available guys that enter. It should be a good time. We'll be locked in, Maddie. Be ready. We're gonna get rested up here. Bowl game, get through it, and then the new year, hit the ground running. Julie, Jarrett, Tyler, everyone at the site, from all of us, thank you, Billy, and a happy new year to everybody. Hopefully, you're ringing it in with an LSU win.
Yep, and thank you all for subscribing to our YouTube channel for the audio side, Apple, Spotify, everybody. Yeah, thank you. Hope everybody had a awesome holiday season, and hope everybody has a happy New Year. Well, we'll be back. We'll do a pod either right after the game or
Yeah, we'll do one
New
after the
Year's
game.
Day. Yeah, we'll do a
Reaction
pod.
pod.
So I'll wish you all happy New Year's later. So yeah, thank you all for joining us. We'll be back. Check out the Bengal Tiger on 3 if you have not already, and we will talk to y'all later.